What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango, and joining me, as always, is Callum Wiggins.
All right, Governor.
Resident
We're going to
Brit.
be talking about a pay-per-view or something?
Something fish and chips. Yes, we are talking NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool. It's a mouthful, but you're not going to be getting a mouthful out of us because we really don't have too much to talk about when it comes to this. We're gonna see how much we get out of this. NXT UK is not the most prolific brand that is going on right now that we are the most invested in, and it's not just us either. Rob was going to be here for this. He's got something going on right now. He wasn't able to, but he hasn't been able to watch many of the shows either. The two of us have not been able to really watch a whole lot. I've got my roundtable for e-wrestling news, and normally I've got about, 4 to 5 people or whatever that like to participate in that for every pay-per-view. And it's like pulling teeth to get people to answer one question about this, which is, why don't you watch NXT UK? That alone, I'm finding people going like, yeah, I don't really want to answer that question. It's really kind of crazy here. So you're not going to get the most in-depth discussion about, the ins and outs of all of these feuds, but we've tried to kind of get ourselves a little bit associated with what's going on, and we have 5 matches to talk about, so we're going to try to give you as much as we can, and I'm assuming, based off of the way that the response is from most people, it's still going to be more information than what you were aware of, so you're still going to get something that's take away from this. And I guess the first question I have for you is kind of the same regard. What is it about NXT UK that makes it just so hard for you to watch?
It's not a case of like being hard to watch, as in just there's just so much out there already. Like WWE puts out so much content, and if I want to watch like Impact Wrestling every now and again, or I want to watch Ring of Honor or New Japan stuff, or like see some other promotions out there, it bogs you down. Like I try and have some semblance of a life outside of professional wrestling.
Right.
I pretty much fail at that side of things, but I do try. And so, even though this is supposed to be for me because it's my country, it's the brand that should be WWE would be most likely touring around with, it doesn't appeal to me as much because the top stars are great and they do have a lot of really good wrestlers, and just I can't find the time to fit it into my pre-existing schedule. So it's not so much like a negative in terms of what the promotion is or what it stands for, who's on it, or the production value or anything like that. Although watching a few episodes, the production value is a little bit all over the place, but it's just too much. They put out too much stuff.
It's kind of a perfect storm for me because the biggest factor is the timing. Like I said, I mean, it's what, 10 hours worth of material a week just with the TV shows, because they got 3 hours of Raw. Technically, you've got an hour of main event, but nobody fucking watches that. An hour of 205 Live, an hour of NXT, and 2 hours of NXT UK, 2 hours of SmackDown. So yeah, that's 10 hours just for the main shows. And then you figure every week I've got to watch at least 1 hour's worth of whatever the special is, or half an hour or whatever that's on the network. Like, for instance, at the end of this pay-per-view this week, they're going to do the story of Nigel McGuinness. And then they're going to do another Edge and Christian show before we do the hot tags and stuff like that. So that's already an extra 2 hours worth of material just with that. And then there's the YouTube, and then there's, living in the world of pro wrestling, writing articles and other kind of stuff. So it's like, yeah, I really don't want to watch every little bit all that much. And to be perfectly honest, there's not a whole lot that captivates me on NXT UK. They sort of started off with like a really bad handicap because they filmed the NXT UK, well, it was still the United Kingdom Championship tournament, in January of 2017. This is a month after they had announced that this was like a brand that was happening. And after they did this tournament, it was like, all right, maybe it'll take them like a month or so to get up and running. And they didn't have anything for an entire year. And then they just did another tournament. So it took a full year of just like every once in a while, Tyler Bate, Trent Seven, and Pete Dunne, maybe Wolfgang, and Mark Andrews would just pop up a little bit on NXT. Nobody else. You know, Joseph Connors, didn't matter. Saxon Huxley, who the hell is he at this point? That kind of a thing. So they did that other tournament, and that was just like, all right, well, it's just another special. Who cares? And then even then, it took them a little while for them to start recording episodes. They started recording in July, and they didn't air the July tapings until October. So by that point, they had filmed the first, like, God knows how many episodes months ago. And I had the spoilers up. I mean, I'm covering the spoilers for Smark Out Moment, so I've known everything that's happening for NXT UK since November. For October, November, December, January. And it's just, I don't need to watch a show that I already know not only what's happening that week, but I know that's what's happening for the next 2 months, you know?
Well, you watch NXT, they film in batches.
Yeah, but they actually seem to figure out a better schedule for that, because when they do the tapings, they do it sort of in like 4-week increments. Instead of being like, all right, well, we did the tapings in August, and they're not going to show up until maybe mid-November. But by then, you've already done the November ones, so that means you already know the next 2 double sets of tapings.
Oh yeah, I understand. The disparity is significantly different in the sense that there's been such a long lead-in time to this happening. I mean, it's just overall just pretty, I don't say awkward, but they've put this together a bit haphazardly, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't seem like an afterthought, but something that they try to put a lot of maybe either too much time into or not enough time, and they threw it out at the last minute, essentially. Just like, oh, this would be good enough, just throw it out now. Or, okay, we just need to fix this element and this element. But I don't know the inner workings of the process of trying to get this out when they got it out, essentially.
It's still just so confusing to me, because it's like, if they record this and they have the network, they could put it on at any point, really. You know?
They should, yeah.
So it's strange that they had recorded these episodes, and they had announced the NXT UK Women's Championship, for instance, for Evolution. And if they would have aired a couple episodes at a time, like they initially ended up doing, then they would have been able to put that on the card at some point. But they decided not to, and then they switched up the timing, because this, at the beginning of this, I don't know if anybody else remembers, but they had started airing it at like 5 o'clock, and then it was 3 o'clock, and then it was, let's do 2-hour chunks of 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. And that kind of like became the standard, is from 3 to 5, they're going to air 2 episodes at a time, even though they never bothered to change the little like transitional elements of being like, all right, well, next week this is going to happen, because then it was like, well, next week is going to start in 5 minutes. And all that stuff was very strange. Like the graphics department couldn't just change the thing that says next week to next episode or coming up next or something. And they tweet this stuff out, and I don't know. It goes to show how little they have invested in this when you look on WWE.com and they don't release pictures, really. It's just sort of like, here's like one video of what happened.
Yeah, they haven't thought about this enough, or they overthought it and ended up making a bit of a hash of it. It's not gone probably the way they would have intended it to.
No, hopefully by this point, because this is sort of a time where they can reset things a little bit, they're going to do another set of tapings the night after this, Sunday night. So maybe they'll have a better schedule at that point. and maybe they'll be able to actually do 1 hour chunks on Wednesdays. If that's the case, it's going to be a lot easier to digest this, I think. So by the time the next NXT UK takeover happens, I think not only will we be more familiar with these characters and everything like that, but maybe we'll be more invested. Maybe it'll be just easier to deal with, because 1 hour less a week doesn't seem like a lot, but that can add up, you know? So keep all that in mind, everybody, while we talk about this, because the first thing I want to talk about is the most recent match that was added onto the card, which was Travis Banks against Jordan Devlin. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this feud essentially boils down to Jordan Devlin goes, "Hey, Travis, you don't fucking live in UK." And Travis goes, "Well, I do now. You want to fight?" And Jordan goes, "Nah." And then Johnny Saint says, "Well, too bad." That's basically all I got out of it.
I mean, that probably is pretty much what it boils down to. I was, from the last few episodes that I watched, you kind of get a sense that at least they've been building up Devlin to look pretty strong recently.
Yeah, he had a pretty good win-loss record.
Yeah, and so Travis Banks was the guy that was he was close to winning the UK tournament, if my memory serves correctly. He was one of the least higher position guys. I think he made it to the semi-finals. And yeah, so I think it's just a good way of putting two of their better wrestlers into a match together. And they did the thing of Devlin trying to distract Banks by wearing an Australian get-up because, hey, you're not British. You're not British, Jordan. You're Irish. It's different. But I mean, I'm increasingly becoming a fan of Jordan Devlin whenever I see him, because he's so much like Finn Balor, but he's like Finn Balor that wasn't, I don't want to say like mistreated, but maybe spoiled as a child, and so thinks that he deserves things that Finn Balor works hard for. And so he went to Finn Balor's training school and said, "Okay, so I know how to be a good wrestler. I'll just do you, essentially. I'll just be you." And they said, "No, that's not how it works." I said, "Oh, fine. I'll be you. I'll be an even better you." And he's gotten so far into the, "Oh my god, you're just a Poundland," which is a UK reference just for any UK fans that are watching.
Yeah, I'm so lost. What's that? Balor.
It's like a dollar store, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, so a dollar store version of Finn Balor. But he's accepted that so much that it works for him.
I mean, he looks like he could be his fucking brother.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So I wouldn't be shocked at all if people just, if they tune in, which I highly doubt that they will, but if they tune in without any kind of backstory or information or whatever, if they were just like, "Yo, what's up with Finn Balor? He looks a little off." Like, it wouldn't shock me. And by the way, I looked it up. Travis Banks, he lost to Zack Gibson in the finals.
Oh, it was in the finals. Okay. I mean, I'm looking forward to the match in just a sense of I like these two guys. I think they'll work well together. But I'll agree with you. There's not a lot behind it to invest it beyond the point of, oh, this should be a good match.
Yeah, and that's kind of the same with almost everything on this card. I've seen enough from most of these people that I can be fairly confident that I'm going to enjoy the in-ring action, but I can't get invested into it. And it's hard for me to kind of get super pumped about a card that I'm like, well, if Banks and Devlin go out and have a good match, it won't be the most surprising thing in the world, but I don't care who wins. It doesn't matter who wins. And it's just going to be kind of a waste of time a little bit, sort of. That sounds stupid to say because it's well, it's pro wrestling. The whole point's supposed to be pro wrestling. The feuds aren't really supposed to be there, technically. That's just the soap opera element that shouldn't exist because...
there's nothing distinguishing this from the match that you just see on a week-to-week NXT UK show.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Then you see more stakes to it. If they'd have said something, the winner gets the next shot at the UK Championship or something along those lines.
Right.
Then you'd have a bit more emphasis behind it. Or if it was more of a grudge match, like one of the matches we're going to be talking about later as well. But
Or even if
Yeah,
this was like the mid-card title match.
Oh, they don't need a mid-card title.
Oh, they don't. They certainly don't. But like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
this would be kind of the equivalent of it, maybe. Actually, what the fuck would you even call it?
What, the mid-card title?
Yeah,
The
what would
Welsh
it even
Championship.
be?
That's probably they're like on mid-card. They're England's mid-card.
Yeah, it's just it sounds mean to say, but it's kind of a throwaway match. It's kind of the bathroom break, but it should be good.
Yeah, it'll be fine. A good like 6-7 out of 10.
I don't really know who I'm going to go with. I think I'm leaning more towards Devlin just because of his win-loss record, but it wouldn't shock me at all if Banks were to win.
I'm trying to balance it out in terms of like people that I think will be heel and face victories and stuff along those lines. I think I'll probably just go for Banks on this one because this strikes me as the match they might want to start as an opener. I mean, they might. I'm like toying between this one and the tag team match as potentially opening the show. And if it is an opener, they probably would go with the babyface to win. So I'm going to go Banks.
To me, it's really difficult to figure out who's going to win these matches because of just kind of like
Not
that
there.
unknown element. Like it's not something that's going to have a follow-up right afterwards, so they could have pretty much anything happen. So it's kind of like I want to balance out the heels and the faces too, but I can kind of go either way for all of these matches, and then that kind of makes me go like, all right, let me just throw my notes up into the air and say fuck it, kind of, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Like the same when it comes to the no disqualification match, it's Dave Mastiff against Eddie Dennis, and that is a very confusing thing because Mastiff has already beaten Eddie Dennis, and they had a match that was a no contest. So the current record between the two is 1 for Mastiff, 1 draw, and I kind of feel like that by default forces Eddie Dennis to win this match, but you look at the two, and the feud is strange to me because I would think if you just showed me these two and you said pro wrestling match, who's the bad guy? I would think that it should be Dave Mastiff because Eddie Dennis is scrawny in comparison. So if he is going up against him, there needs to be some kind of an edge, and I don't get that edge out of it. It almost just sort of seems like I'm supposed to buy into Eddie Dennis's punches hurt a guy as big as Dave Mastiff the same as like if like I don't know Rusev were to do it or something. It's not selling me on it, and this whole like bitter feud that they've got going on, I don't quite get that either. It's for a no DQ match that's supposed to be like a bitter rivalry. I'm not feeling it.
I think that's understandable. I think at least the no disqualification aspect of it lends a little more credence to the idea that Eddie Dennis could win and get an edge over Dave Mastiff, just because it gives him an opportunity to use weapons and take shortcuts and exploit a little bit more of the brawling style that he has against Mastiff. Because I don't mind the big guy being a babyface if he's likable, and Dave Mastiff has that kind of element to him. I think he can come across as a bit of a lovable giant, even though in the packages building up to this, he's trying to come across as a lot more serious. I mean, I kind of like it's a very like British Reserve style of doing all the like the sit down interviews and talking about your journey and your background. It's subdued, but it kind of works for the market, I guess. So watching them talk about what they do and how they're going to try and win this match and everything along those lines is fine. But I don't know enough about Eddie Dennis to really get a huge amount of investment behind him. Like, I've watched his match against Sid Scala, I think it was, from NXT UK a few weeks ago. He looks like somebody that grew up in a very rough neighborhood but didn't have a gym anywhere nearby. So he just kind of got the clothes and got a short haircut and thought that would do essentially. But I think he looks like the guy that would just be able to brawl with Mastiff and exploit the no DQ thing a bit better than Mastiff will.
Yeah, that's
it's
the key to me, I think, is, I mean, cutting to the chase a little bit. I'm going with Eddie Dennis here because I think that he needs to even the odds, but I think that it's going to be because of the no DQ element. Like, you give him a kendo stick, you give him a chair, whatever the case may be. I would like something slightly different. I don't really know what, but I don't want to just see like a regular no DQ match from these two. And I think that that's going to be the reason why he's able to beat Mastiff. It shouldn't be that he just like punches him real fucking hard, you know?
Oh, absolutely. He needs to take some kind of like edge that he wouldn't naturally be able to get into in another match. I mean, I'm probably going to go with Mastiff for this one, just because I think having a guy win with the no DQ thing, because it's no DQ stipulation, it works, but I think if they were going to have him win in that sort of fashion, they'd make it like just a standard match, because then it seems like he cheated to win.
That's true.
And that seems more of a fit for him. Whereas if Dave Mastiff can overcome the fact that Eddie Dennis, not so much has the edge, but will probably exploit the weapons side of things more, and still able to overpower him due to his size and his more speed and athleticism than you'd expect from someone of his size and build, then it looks a bit more impressive and it sets him up more. But I don't know what plans they have for either of these guys. Like, there's only one championship they can go for, and I don't know which one they see more in. Like, based on size alone, you'd probably assume that Mastiff is the guy going forward, but they might see more in Dennis. So I think it will entirely depend on which one they think would be a more suitable challenger going forward for the UK Championship. But I'm going to go for Mastiff as my prediction.
Mastiff goes after Rhea Ripley instead.
That would be gross.
And let's go ahead and bring Rob into the call. Rob, we went ahead and we talked about the first two matches. Let's just give a little bit of a quick breakdown here. What you think in NXT UK? You got a little bit of a chance to kind of catch up. You excited?
I'm very excited. I wish that I had more time to devote to this brand, but with so much going on, how could you? But it looks like a very good show, and I think it'll be maybe the first really good show of the year.
Well, it's the first show of the year.
Well, Wrestle Kingdom exists, but it'll be the second good show of the year.
Who you got with Banks, Devlin, and Mastiff, Dennis?
I like Finn Balor Dude, as I call Jordan Devlin. I like his chances, and I like Dave Mastiff. I know they're really pushing Eddie Dennis, but Dave Mastiff, he seems like he's got a good shot.
Who's winning the match behind you?
Not me. I'll tell you that much. And not me, and not my sanity.
That sounds like a no DQ match all on its own.
I never thought about this. This is simultaneously going to be, after it happens, the best and worst show of the year so far. So.
Yeah.
What if this ends up being the best show of the year? Like, what if this blows us out of the water?
Shitty year. Then we have a shitty year.
No, well, unless this show is like amazing, which I highly doubt it will be. But if it is, then kudos to it. But if it turns out to be the best show of the year, I can only presume we've had a very bad year.
Yeah, it's gonna be strange. Like NXT events usually kind of surpass whatever the main card thing is. I mean, main roster, I should say, not the main card. And if that kind of continues, then it's like, all right, well, NXT is the B level compared to Raw and SmackDown or whatever like that. NXT UK is a level lower than NXT. What if they surpass NXT and then, just kind of continue? So then they end up going like, well, let's put on a pay-per-view dedicated to the people that are only on main event, and then be like, main event takeover, whatever. And it's being fucking amazing, and it just kind of continues this trend of the least that you put into this, the lesser the better. Very strange.
Well, in that case, then just Raw's gonna get worse.
Yeah. Well, that's probably gonna happen anyways. Let's talk about the NXT UK Tag Team Championship, because we don't currently have tag team champions. This is going to be crowning the inaugural champions. Between one side is Moustache Mountain, Trent Seven, and Tyler Bate. The other side are the grizzled young veterans, Zack Gibson and James Drake, which I was unfamiliar with the fact that they were an actual tag team up until pretty much 3 weeks ago, I think. And they've been doing a little bit of work here. I'll give them credit. Up until a couple weeks ago, I thought that they had no tag teams. Like, I looked at the roster and I was like, all right, so there's Moustache Mountain and the Coffey brothers. And when they had announced that it was going to be Pete Dunne against Joe Coffey, I was like, well, then who the fuck is going to fight Moustache Mountain for the tag titles? So that was just kind of an unfamiliar kind of element to me. Gibson and Drake have been, I think it's Progress world champion, tag team champions. Progress, of course, doesn't really necessarily count because it's like not really a developmental territory. Kind of is, sort of isn't. It's kind of like Evolve. They have a working partnership, but, you know, whatever. They've got Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews that have been tagging up together a lot. They've got, I believe it was Connors and Huxley until they turned on each other, and now Huxley's with Tyson T-Bone. Trying to remember off the top of my head. They got a couple people here and there. Kenny Williams and Amir Jordan are a tag team that have been hanging around together for quite a bit, so they've done more work than I thought that they did. I still was shocked, though, that they went with the Grizzled Young Veterans. I would have thought that this would have been pretty self-explanatory. Pete Dunne against somebody, and the Coffey brothers against Moustache Mountain, which kind of makes me think Moustache Mountain should win, and the Coffey brothers should be the next challengers, which means Joe Coffey loses, but I'm kind of like overthinking it a little bit. The more I overthink it, and the more that I think that it's a guarantee that Moustache Mountain wins, the more I think that they don't. And currently, it's 4 o'clock on Thursday, the 10th. I'm actually going with Gibson and Drake. I think that they're going to be the first NXT UK Tag Team Champions. Seems sort of weird, because you would think that they would go with the people that actually have held the tag titles and are like a legit tag team, more so that, you know, more prolific, but I'm going Gibson and Drake. What do you guys think?
I think because of the fact that Moustache Mountain are the established team, that they're going with Gibson and Drake. Because I don't think you need to put the belt on Moustache Mountain unless you want to put over, hey, look at the NXT UK Tag Team Champions. They already won the belts. I think if you want to get talent over, you put it on Gibson and Drake. We know that Gibson is very good on the mic as a heel. Very salty that they defeated Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews, as they're my favorite tag team and two of my favorite guys on the brand. But yeah, I think they've got a good shot.
Yeah, I'm going to make it 3-for-3 then, because I'm also going to go for Zack Gibson and James Drake. Like Rob says, Moustache Mountain are already completely established. They've already won the NXT Tag Team Championships. They've been on NXT multiple times. They are an established unit. Whereas Zack Gibson and James Drake, for people of Progress, obviously know how good they are, but people who are just mainly watching NXT UK or WWE fans won't know how good they are. So this is a perfect opportunity to just establish them as, oh, okay, these guys are pretty good then, because they just beat Moustache Mountain. And based on what I've seen of them, like, I thought their match against Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews was great. It was perfect. Like heel tag team psychology. The interview they gave the week afterwards, where essentially it's just a load of Zack Gibson talking about how great they are, while James Drake just stares at the interviewer just constantly without any sort of blinking or hesitation. I think their tandem works really well from what I've seen of it so far. And also based on the ability that Zack Gibson has, the ability that Tyler Bate has, this match is going to, especially when those two are in the ring together, this match is going to kick all kinds of ass. So I'm really much looking forward to it.
I think that there's definitely a chance that this is the best match of the card.
Oh, absolutely.
There's an argument that could be said for his age range. Tyler Bate may be best in the world. Like, the dude isn't even 22 yet, am I right?
I hope not, because that depresses me, but yeah, it probably is true.
Well, he was 19 when he won the belt, and that was January, 2 years ago? So he's only got to be 21, maybe. Like, this guy is incredible.
Oh yeah, he's a genetic freak. He's got an immense amount of strength and ability, and he produces sequences of moves and excites the crowd probably more than anyone on that entire roster. And I'd probably even go so far to say Pete Dunne as well in that regard as well. It's between him and Pete Dunne, they're probably the two most over guys on the entire roster. So the fact that one of them's in a tag team is a little bit. It's I don't say it's a bit of a waste because him and Trent Seven have such amazing chemistry together, but Tyler Bate eventually will stand out on his own and be just a permanent main eventer. But for now, he's good in the tag team. But you need to give Zack Gibson something really, because he won the second tournament, didn't win the championship. This is your opportunity to give him a level of prominence that somebody of his ability and stature kind of deserves at this point. At least in my opinion. I know he rubs some people up the wrong way, but I think he's immensely talented in the ring and on the mic, so and would definitely be able to carry the belts very well.
See, I'm so unfamiliar with James Drake. That's one of the, I guess more than anything, that's the unknown for me. Gibson, I've seen enough of now that I'm not super familiar with him. I can't tell you what his finisher is, even. But he was featured for that second tournament, so I kind of know a little bit more about him. James Drake, I honestly get him and Joseph Connors mixed up all the time. I have to sit there and go all right, which one's the long-haired, dark brunette guy with the tattered rags and all? I'm just kind of
Well, one of them's got two ears. It's probably the biggest distinction you can have about it.
Which one's which?
Joseph Connors got half an ear missing.
Okay, he's that one.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, you're something special when you're under a WWE contract and you don't even have a Wikipedia page.
He doesn't?
No, neither does Dave Mastiff, which I find even more surprising because he's been around for quite a while.
That's so weird.
Hey, Wikipedia, wrestling is underrepresented in Wikipedia just like it is in all forms of entertainment. Just terrible shame. But maybe once he wins it, if he wins the tag team championships here, they'll reward him with the Wikipedia page. That might be even more rewarding for him than actually winning the title. So
it's strange
the winner
because
of this match gets a Wikipedia.
I could see them going with the whole idea of Gibson and Drake just because it's it's not as obvious and some different things like that. But this brand is so new and it's so they're recording things that they're going to air for months at a time, and we don't know if we're going to get another takeover this year for them. And if we do, I'm assuming it's not happening until at least July or September or something like that. So this is going to have to last a while, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if they say, you know what, let's just go with Moustache Mountain. They can lose the titles on some kind of taping and do that 3 months from now or something, This is where we're going to get into the crossover effect, because to me, I think that we were talking about this earlier, balancing out the idea of the heels and the faces. I don't know who's going to win this one because I don't know who's going to win the other two. We can kind of go straight into the talk about it. The NXT UK Women's Championship, Rhea Ripley against Toni Storm. My gut reaction is Toni Storm wins the title. She is the more popular of the two. She recently had a whole negative thing going on with leaked photos, which were honestly really not all that bad. At least from my perspective. I'm sure it was embarrassing as fuck, but you know what I mean. Paige had it worse. Let's just put it that way. They might want to reward her and kind of give her a little bit of a boost like that. Clearly, she is the bigger star compared to Rhea Ripley. She won the Mae Young Classic. I'm pretty sure that she didn't win the NXT UK Women's title because they wanted her to win the Mae Young Classic. And I think that actually happened in a weird way because of the Tegan Nox thing. So I look at this as kind of like a stall, and then they go with Toni Storm. And if they go with Toni Storm, and spoiler alert, my prediction is Pete Dunne retains the title, I kind of can't see them going all baby faces win, and Moustache Mountain sort of has to lose. I'm like, you know what I mean? They could, like, they've done this kind of stuff before. All heels have won before, all faces have won, whatever, but I don't know. That almost, the fact that I believe so much that Toni Storm's going to win the title pretty much makes me think that Moustache Mountain loses. But, and you know, there's an argument for Rhea Ripley too. What do you guys think? Storm going to win the title, or are they going to stick with the Rhea Ripley thing just because it's like, what has she done kind of thing, you know?
So first and foremost, I am excited most for this match because these are the two competitors that I've seen the most of, and I know what they can do, and I think that they're going to go all out. I do agree with Toni. I think Toni Storm is winning this match. I thought this before all of the, you know, the leak and the social media deletion, but I think that now even more it's going to be a feel-good story when she wins because they know that she's been going through this rough time. And she deserves it. She won the Mae Young Classic. She's the only NXT woman really familiar, NXT UK woman really familiar with the WWE audience. I think this is such a good moment for Toni Storm to win. However, that's not to say that Rhea Ripley should be discounted. She's amazing and just as good as Toni Storm, if not, you know, better in some regards as a heel and a ring general. I don't know.
I'm going to pull a Drew here.
I like her. One of those standouts on this brand for me has been watching Rhea Ripley.
I felt stronger about Rhea Ripley in the first Mae Young Classic than I did in the second one. I kind of feel like she regressed a little bit.
I don't know. What do you think, Callum? You think you're going to make it 3 for 3, Toni Storm winning it?
This one's probably the hardest one I have to predict. And even more so, I mean, it's about the same level as the first two matches. The first two matches don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, as compared to this one. In terms of a championship on the line, and the fact that Rhea Ripley hasn't held it for particularly long, or hasn't really done that much of no other than win it and defend it in a dark match on Evolution.
She defended it against Isla Dawn and Deonna Purrazzo, if I remember correctly. And she's technically held it since like December, but she's actually been champion since like August or something. So
she has held it for like a while in real terms.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think this entirely depends on what they have planned for Toni Storm. Because I think we'd probably all be in agreement in the fact that she's main roster ready, beyond any shadow of a doubt. She's already won the Mae Young Classic. She's amazingly likable. She's very, very good in the ring. She's good on the microphone. She's very charismatic. She would fit right in on either Raw or SmackDown.
Yeah, she's popular as hell.
Yeah, and even though the leak stuff is horrible, and whoever did do that deserves to have his penis cut into many different like segments, just so he can experience like a severe amount of embarrassment as well. I'm assuming it's a guy. It's almost certainly a guy. And yeah, I think that could have elevated.
I'm just assuming. I'm laughing right now because I'm like, man, you know, there's probably somebody in WWE going, why don't we make Rhea Ripley the one that did it? Just like, you know, really give them heat and just be like, you know, I leaked those photos of you masturbating and whatever. Like, just, you know.
And also, I was the one that punched Becky Lynch in the face as well. It wasn't Nia Jax. I was controlling her from Brawl. No, but it's like, I can see them either giving the title to Toni and having her as the face of, pretty much the face of NXT UK almost, because of her crossover popularity. But I could also see her like stature as someone who's been through this sort of hardship and has also travelled the world for a long time. And the fact that she's so young as well, I think she's definitely in her early 20s.
She's like 21.
Yeah.
I think she's 23.
I'd say she's 22 then, just to split the difference. But
65 years old, and she looks like.
Okay, she's 23. She was born on October 19th, 1995.
Oh, that's again. So many
Still-
young people in wrestling that makes you feel depressed.
Yeah, still younger than me, so
But I'll go with, just to be contrarian, because I'm not convinced it's like too strongly either side. I'll just go with Rhea Ripley, just to maybe there's a sense of Toni being moved up to either Raw, SmackDown, or NXT at some point in the near future, and I think Rhea Ripley's a strong enough character and a strong enough heel to run the brand until someone like Zia Brookside gets a bit more experience and a bit more momentum behind her to take the title.
See, the hardest thing about predicting these is the roster is not all that deep. So if you look at it, who's the next heel that challenges Toni Storm? Who's the next babyface that challenges Rhea Ripley? That's the thing where I lean more towards the Ginny thing, like you just said, because they are building up this idea of Ginny against Isla Dawn, and that strikes me as more Toni Storm wins the title, Ginny beats Isla Dawn, Ginny starts feuding with Toni Storm. I can't picture another babyface that goes for Rhea Ripley. Unless maybe they bring in Piper Niven, and maybe they bring her in as a babyface. But then they could bring her in as a heel, and she could fight Toni Storm. So I think there's more options with Storm. Most of the people that are in NXT UK right now for the women's division aren't really doing all that much. Like Millie McKenzie, I think, was only on the first tapings. Nina Samuels keeps losing. Killer Kelly keeps losing. What's that one's name? Charlie Morgan. I don't think she's won a match. So
she's not very good.
It's Ginny.
So far.
Like Ginny has to be the next contender.
I think Ginny's definitely the next contender if it is Toni Storm that wins. I think that there is room for Millie McKenzie and Zia Brookside to both be challengers for, if they're built up enough, for Rhea Ripley. And like you say, the next big event for NXT UK could be months and months down the line, so they have time to build them up. But it would be a bit of a coup if they could get hold of either Piper Niven or KB Ray, as they're probably the two biggest women's independent stars in the UK. But I'd be highly surprised. I mean, who knows? They could both go to AEW for all I know. So it's like, if they're going to get paid more. But I personally think that they do have options if they want to build people up to the right amount. I think Ginny's just a very easy option, and it's the safe option to go with.
Yeah.
But it depends whether they want Ginny to win the championship or not, because I would go along the lines of, when Ginny gets a shot, she should probably win it, or at least win it on her second or third attempt at it or whatever, because you don't want to hold off for too long. Again, it's also dependent on, with Toni Storm, how long do you want her to hold the championship for? Because look at Pete Dunne, he's held the championship for nearly 600 days. And so they're going to have like a year-long title reign.
Right, they could, because she's popular, so.
Yeah.
Real quick, Dave Meltzer said just yesterday on Wrestling Observer Radio that Piper is expected to sign with WWE over AEW, but AEW is pushing for her.
2 months ago, when I did the first small package kind of like throw out random idea that was on my brain, I almost put up a thing that was basically just, why hasn't WWE signed Piper Niven yet? And that was like literally going to be that. And then I was like, really, I can't just post one sentence. So I didn't do that. But I'm glad that that's the case, because even though she wasn't like the big standout to me when it came to the Mae Young Classic, she stood out enough that I was like, well, they have NXT UK right now. Like, there's no reason why she shouldn't be a part of it. And I could see a really good scenario being built up here where Rhea Ripley drops the title to Toni Storm. Toni Storm keeps it for many, many months. Over the course of the next few months, they build up Ginny. Whether they have another TakeOver event in like the summer or the fall, Ginny fights Toni Storm. And she could either win the title there, or she could retain the title. And then by that point, Piper Niven gets built up and they do that kind of thing. Because if Dakota Kai and or Tegan Nox were healthy, I would lean more towards Rhea Ripley retaining, because then either one of those two could potentially win that title. Right now, I don't think that there's another babyface, so it wouldn't shock me if Rhea Ripley retains, but I'm going Toni Storm.
Do we think this will be the best match on the card?
I'm going with the tag team one.
I'm going with the tag team one, but at the same time, the tag team one, the UK title, and the NXT UK women's title, all three have a chance, I think. I'll just put it this way. It's not going to be the no DQ match.
Actually, not. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, true.
I'll say this show won't be lacking in wrestling quality.
No, this will be a well-wrestled show.
I'll also say this. Stranger Things have happened, but I would much rather watch Season 3 of Stranger Things than watch NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool.
Yeah.
God, man, looking forward to that. Well, crap, we're done other than the last match. Oh, wow, okay. The NXT UK brand is headed by the United Kingdom Championship, and that's most likely going to be the main event. Pete Dunne is going to defend against Joe Coffey, and as Callum brought up a few minutes ago, he's held the title for almost 600 days. I think it's 593 or something like that by now. So if he retains the title, he's passing that 600 mark. If he loses the title, actually, I don't know, because if they do the recordings the night afterward, he might lose it. I don't know. Joe Coffey doesn't strike me as the guy that beats the guy who has held the title for 600 days, you know?
Can you say guy one more time?
Right. I think that's pretty much the attitude that I'm taking to this. The Gala stable is fine. That's probably the most I can really say for it. I mean, you look at the 6-man tag team match. If Gallus was as big as I think NXT UK would probably hope they were, the match would have had a lot more heat behind it rather than just a load of people chanting for British Strong Style, because they're the stars of this promotion, those three, and it's mainly just Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, but Trent Seven's also popular. But I haven't really bought into, from what I've seen, Joe Coffey as a main event level talent. And I've seen him in other promotions that he's good. He's very good in the ring, and he's like a very good power guy, and he's very athletic. But there's something of a disconnect for me.
Would you say that his run in the main event is almost just like a cup of coffee?
Damn it! I knew you were gonna do it. As soon as you, like, really, Tony?
You happy you turned up now, Rob? This is the stuff that you go for.
Guy.
Well, I'm surprised Callum didn't mention it there, but not only is Joe Coffey not the guy who beats the guy that has been the guy, but Walter's probably going to be in the crowd. And
that whole that spot of like who's checking out NXT UK. Well, this is Walter. That guy.
Let me put it this way: if Walter's in the crowd, you're not going to be able to miss him, because
he's
you'll basically
boy.
be taking up the entire like two or three rows at the back. That's he's the guy. He's the guy.
I don't know anything about this Walter guy, but the way that you've been talking about them, I immediately went straight to just like, he is the guy.
Because you haven't watched it, and you're going to watch his first match, you probably think, oh, who's this guy in just the black trunks that looks like a giant baby?
Not and like a Vladimir Kozlov way either.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Oh, yeah, he does just look like a really, like if you just pumped Vladimir Kozlov full of pie, essentially. But he's so much better than Vladimir Kozlov's like stuff with pie. I just want to make that that distinction.
Good, because I was not a fan of Kozlov.
Because he's a really, I don't want to say basic wrestler, but he just does the basic stuff really well. Like he does a big, like this giant guy does a big splash off the top rope, and he does really hard chops, and he does the earthquake avalanche spot. That's one of his like signature moves. It's just like.
Does he do the stomp too?
I think so. I don't think he does. I don't think he like builds it up that much, really. I think he just kind of just hits it, but depends on the situation, I expect. But he's had some amazing matches with like Will Ospreay in recent years, and like Ricochet, and I think he's been working for PWG, and he's done work in Germany and the UK and US, Japan. He does a lot. And, like, I feel like we're just taking away from the actual match itself, because I assume Pete Dunne Joe Coffey is going to be a really good match just by the strength of Pete Dunne's level of performance. But it's going to be hard hitting. It's going to be less of a technical wrestling match and more of a, I'm going to forearm you in the face as hard as I can, and then I'm going to break your fingers, and diving crossbodies, anything along those lines. But like I say, Joe Coffey just doesn't strike me as a champion or as the main champion of the brand. He strikes me as a tag team champion, but not the main champion.
Yeah, what else can you say? I think it's going to be a good match, but it's ultimately just leading to Pete Dunne eventually losing the title, and I think it's going to be to Walter.
Yeah, no, it's quite sad that this is supposedly the main event match. It's actually the one we have the least to say about, because I don't think any of us really we can think that Joe Coffey's good, but none of us buy him as the United Kingdom champion.
Well, first of all, and let me just say, and this is a knock, I don't buy any stable that has Wolfgang a part of it. Okay?
That's a knock, but it's okay.
Wolfgang is bad, and he should feel bad. And I like the Coffey Brothers as a tag team. Now we know, was it Joe Coffey that got the match with Kurt Angle?
Yes, he had a match with Kurt Angle.
Yeah, so we know he's good. You know what I mean? You don't put a guy in the ring with Kurt Angle unless he's good. But I don't know. I don't see him beating Pete Dunne.
Yeah, Pete's the star of the promotion.
Yeah, he really is.
You'd have to have a lot of faith in Joe Coffey and a lot of faith in the Gala stable to have him win this match. And just something about it strikes me as there are better options out there. Like, for instance, I know they're part of British Strong Style, but I want to see another Pete Dunne Tyler Bate match for the championship, even though we've seen it multiple times before. That's you can run that match constantly. You could sell any NXT UK event on that match alone.
Honestly, they could have announced it for the first UK takeover simply because it's the first UK takeover, and they would have had so many people hyped for Saturday.
I kind of look at this in a similar way to the NXT UK Women's title, where I look at the possible future contenders, and that makes me make my decision, because you've brought up Walter, and if he's a big guy, the big guy thing tends to typically be heel is easier. That's kind of why I say the same thing about Dave Mastiff. And if Dave Mastiff loses to Eddie Dennis, then Eddie Dennis could be a challenger too. And they could also kind of play around a little bit with this Gala stable. Like, Pete Dunne can fight Wolfgang. He can fight Mark Coffey. And they can kind of kill a little bit of time when it comes to that. And then do Eddie Dennis, and then do Walter, or something like that.
And there's Jordan Devlin, and there's...
He's had a match with Devlin, but at the same time, it was just on NXT UK. It wasn't on a TakeOver, so they could revisit that in the future.
Gibson could have another rematch against him at some point. You've got Joseph Connors as well.
Yeah, you could build up Connors.
Yeah, so there's enough people that you could give him some decent television matches until you pair him up with Walter or whoever you want to have as the guy to beat him. Because the guy that beats Pete Dunne at this point is going to get a huge rub, essentially.
Yeah, he's a made man. I mean, you're ending a 600-day title reign.
I mean, it doesn't matter that he's only defended it 6 times in between that as well, but it's
hey, he's defended it at ICW. Would Brock Lesnar defend it at ICW? I don't think so.
Well, it depends how much they pay him.
Maybe Brock Lesnar beats him.
Hey, don't joke about this, Tony. Yeah, it's not good. Just don't joke about it, Tony, because it will come true.
And then he goes to the UK and he eats all of the roster with a side of fish and chips.
Look, I'm okay with sacrificing the NXT UK roster to Brock Lesnar if it means that Brock Lesnar doesn't fuck up running at Raw anymore.
Well, UK's part of the universe, so technically he's already the champion of the UK as well. So
that's what the U stands for in UK, right? Universe, Universal Kingdom.
It definitely doesn't stand for United anymore.
And now we have the European Union stable, and it's a German and an Italian guy, I think, right?
I don't know why there isn't a pro-Brexit person in the UK roster. He'd be the biggest heel guy. Well, actually, he'd be like the most polarizing figure on the entire roster. He'd get more mixed reactions than Roman Reigns.
Just go full on into it. Have the character be like Brexit Bill or something like that.
Oh yeah,
Like Bad News Barrett.
I would totally be in it to that. If they had anybody like that, then he should be the person that beats Pete Dunne for the title. Just decided right.
Oh man. Probably I shouldn't have said the cup of coffee joke. I probably should have said something about tea. Now it just popped in my mind.
No, you're too late.
Yeah,
If you're joking about tea, you need to involve Charlotte and Becky Lynch.
that's true. I don't know, I just had a flashback in my brain of Moonraker where he asks Bond for a cucumber sandwich, and it always struck me as strange. So now I kind of want to make a cucumber sandwich joke, but I can't think of one. So instead, we're just going to wrap things up here. We got more out of this discussion than I thought that we would, because I don't think that we're going to be super, super duper enthralled with what we get, but we could always be proven wrong. These NXT UK things have been relatively entertaining in the past. There's been some blah, and there's been some wow, so hopefully we get more of the wow. At the end of the day, we're all going Pete Dunne, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
This might be the first time that we did 3, and we're just all united. We're the United Kingdom, guys.
There you go. Yeah, so those are our predictions for NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool. Make sure that you leave your comments below and tell us what you think is going to be happening and what your thoughts overall are about NXT UK. If you don't watch it, why? If you do, you know, how's it going so far? What do you think? Now that fashion, that is happening Saturday afternoon because of the time zone difference and everything like that. So if you are on the Eastern Seaboard, then 1:30 p.m. is when they are starting the pre-show. 2 o'clock is when they're going to start the main show, if I remember correctly. And then that's going to be running until about 4:30, 5 o'clock. So at some point after that, we're going to be doing our post-show. We're reviewing everything that happens on here and just giving our thoughts about that. So stay tuned for that Pay-Per-Viewpoint. And then next week after that, we're going to be doing the Royal Rumble 2013 Announce Table commentary track that we're going to do for that. So if you want to be aware of when those things get posted on the channel, hit that subscribe button and ring the little bell for notifications, especially because they sent out an email earlier today saying that they're not going to really let people auto-post to Twitter anymore when you upload new videos. So my If This Then That feed that sends those directly over to Twitter might not work as well going forward. So if you follow the Facebook and Twitter accounts, it's obviously a good thing because eventually articles are posted and different things like that that'll be able to tell you when these videos are up. But that is the best way to be aware of when new videos come up. You get those email notifications by subscribing on YouTube, and then you'll know right off the bat. Same thing when it comes to premieres, because I think that the premieres send out the invites too. So be aware of that. Also, be aware of the Patreon, because we have that set up to where if you have a little bit of spare change and you want to help us out and you want to toss a buck our way, or $5 or $8,000, whatever the case it might be, then you could do that and you can take advantage of those tiers. And there's also the Redbubble and the TeePublic shops if you want to pick up some merchandise. There are things happening over at fanboysanonymous.com if you're interested in the geek culture side of things that I take care of. We've got e-wrestling news. We've got Bleacher Report that I take a part of. These guys have their stuff that they do as well. Callum?
Follow me on Twitter at Wigmaster14. Check out the power rankings on smockoutmoment.com and all the other weekly articles that we put out on there. Stay tuned for something hopefully coming in the very near future that I'm very excited about. Other people are very excited about. And hopefully you will be very excited about soon. But that's all I'm going to say about it so far. Just so I don't disappoint them when it inevitably doesn't happen.
Well, Callum, have a little more faith in yourself. I hope it does happen. For me, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DudeFelice. Check out eWrestling News. Check out WrestleZone. your 2 daily sources for all the wrestling news. Lots of coverage of AEW. We have great on-site coverage on WrestleZone.com, interviews with Cody, the Bucks, Brandy, and more. And if you're very interested in AEW, stay tuned to the Triple Threat because we're doing an AEW preview of sorts. And then there's Time Killer Apparel. You can buy a t-shirt, a hoodie, you know the good stuff. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for being here. And thank you for being you.
Except for you. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, you.
Hope nobody listening to this has like deep anxiety issues and they're like, that's probably me.
Oh,
It's like,
shit, it's me.
It's not, it's true.
Alrighty, everybody, that's going to do us in for this. Thank you for listening. As always, we will see you next time. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.